The following segment is sponsored by Xterra Incorporated, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol XAG.V. Xterra plans to become a mid-tier producer of silver and base metals through the development of its Bilbao deposit located in the central Mexican mineral belt in the state of Zacatecas, as well as through additional exploration and acquisition opportunities. Find Xterra on the web at xterra.ca. Join me for a conversation with a frequent guest of the show, David Morgan, the Silver Guru, an expert on money, metals, and mining, also a lecturer and an author. Mr. Morgan has written Get the Skinny on Silver Investing, available on Amazon.com. His website is themorganreport.com. David, welcome back to the program.
Well, it's good to be back.
It's hard not to get past the white elephant right in front of us right now, and I'm talking about the tense situation in the Middle East and Syria. I try to ignore it with regard to these types of interviews and broadcasts, but I can't seem to.
Well, Alice, there's tons of analysis going on over this, probably as much as any I can remember in my lifetime. I mean, I was old enough to be in the last round of the draft of the Vietnam War, so, I remember well what was going on during the Vietnam War. And I wouldn't say this is probably equal to that, but there certainly is, a great propensity of people, roughly, I guess, 90%, that are not in favor of going to war with Syria. There's all kinds of debate whether this character in Syria actually used chemical weapons on his own population or not. There's evidence stated that exists that he did, and there's other evidence stated that it was not. It was the rebels themselves, so who knows. What I will say is that a lot of it, in my view, and studied view at that, is it's a bit of a smokescreen for the underlying real situation, meaning that the world runs on energy. It doesn't run on finance, it doesn't run on money, although everyone says money makes the world go round, and that's true somewhat. But really, without energy, you don't have anything. I mean, quick thought experiment. Turn the electricity off for 2 months and figure out what the world runs on. It's not going to run on your bank account. It's going to run on electrical power. It's going to run on gasoline, coal, nuclear. It's running on energy. That's what the world runs on. Now, the reason I'm making that point so strongly is because what's going on in Syria is a battle between Russia, Gazprom, that has the ability to put in this pipeline through that territory and basically circumvent the Anglo-American empire with your Exxon BP monopoly. So that, I think, is something that some analysts, some of the more aware, we might say, and awake, are talking about, and I think that definitely plays into this a great deal. So that's kind of behind the scenes. The other point I want to make, and believe me, Ellis, thanks for asking, and I'm certainly not a great geopolitical analyst, but I certainly read others' works that I admire highly. And the other big debate is, will this lead to World War III or not? And, there's pretty good arguments on both sides. I think one of the best analysts on the side that said, no, this is getting overblown as far as what will really take place, is Joel Skousen, and Joel is the brother of Mark Skousen, who runs the Freedom Fest event every year, and there's such notables there as Steve Forbes and others of that note. I mean, it's a very high-caliber event. Anyone that's ever been to it, or anyone that knows of Lou Rockwell from the Mises Institute, anyway, you can do some further research on that if you're interested. The other point is that, who knows? I mean, this thing could escalate very, very well, or it could be an excuse to escalate more. You don't know. There's a lot of unknowns when you go into something like this. So there's really very, very little benefit to anyone for an escalation in this region, and yet it seems that the powers that be in the U.S. corporation are bound and determined to the heck and gone with the people, or the people's opinion. We're going anyway. And what they don't tell you is that they've been directed to go for it because there are energy interests at hand, and it's a battle for that region over energy monopoly, or at least control. And I think that's important. And you don't get that kind of information out of the Wall Street Journal. You're not going to get it in Business Week. You're not going to get it on CNN. You're not going to get it, period. The only way you're going to get it is shows like yours, the alternative media, where people have the guts to stand up and tell people what's really going on.
It's funny that you mentioned Joel Skousen. I met his brother Mark, the economist, but not Joel. I was listening to Joel Skousen last night on another radio program that airs coast to coast, and he said that Obama's got handlers, and his handlers are telling, if not in fact ordering him to go in and clean it up and do exactly what you said. The Anglo-American empire needs to retain its control and expand upon it in the Middle East. This is about energy, according to him, and according to you, perhaps.
Me and others, yeah. I think I'll give credit to Dr. Jim Willey. Jim is quite the character, and I don't think he'd mind me stating that, and but very bright, very aware, very astute, and very good at drilling down to the real brass tacks, to use an overused colloquialism. This is the truth, and people need to know it. People also need to wake up to the fact that these power players, most of them, not all, but most, are basically at the beck and call of, as you say, handlers, and people don't like that, but it's true. I mean, the last time you had somebody in my strong, again, studied opinion that stood up and said, this is the way it really is, was John F. Kennedy, and look what happened to him. The handlers, or the handlers-to-be, or the handlers that were trying to handle him, or however you want to state it, said, this guy can't be handled. We're out of control. This guy's doing what he was doing was in the best interest of the country, in my view. But nonetheless, paid a very, very heavy price for that, as did his brother.
You know, I can't dispute any of that. Skousen also said that the Chinese and the Russians don't have the juice to stop the U.S. at this time. We have so many secret weapons that we have yet to deploy. All they can do is watch and learn from our war tactics.
I'm going to agree with that, and I'm going to kind of just leave it at that. I mean, my background came from a darker area at one time, years and years and years ago, and I've been debriefed, and I really can't say much more, but just let me acknowledge.
I didn't see that coming, David, but I know of what you speak. I didn't realize your past may have been so deep and dark, and let me say, black, evidently.
Well, I'll just make one further comment, and people can make up their own mind, but what I knew for a fact going back more than 30 years would blow your mind. And there's been 3 decades since I was excused from that line of endeavor. So I can just imagine what the capabilities potentially are at this point in time, but I would just be guessing. But what I do know is what it was like, again, 3 decades ago. And there's stuff that was going on then that people still wouldn't believe could be taking place even today.
So that still backs up my point, perhaps, that there's really nothing that the Russians or the Chinese can do to stop any military action that the U.S. might take over there.
I wouldn't go that far, but I don't know. I mean, and you don't either, but I think the point's well taken that there's probably best serve their interest to watch and see, and it's a good thing, you know, if you're going to get in a fight with somebody, if you get a guy that's dumb enough to go in the ring first and see what your opponent does and see if there's any weaknesses or see what they can, you know, it'd be a great way to just kind of observe and see. And Russia and China, to a much lesser degree, but Russia specifically, is given, you know, weapons or whatever to Syria, and so they could watch and see how easily they're taken out or circumvented or made inoperable or whatever takes place, and without getting their hands necessarily dirty. Yeah, they just gave them some hardware, and this is what happened, and say, oh my goodness, look at that. Oh my. Or perhaps not, but it would certainly be an easier way for them to get a very much better handle on the situation.
So everybody really knows what the deal is. Everybody except perhaps the American public.
Well, I think saying everyone's a bit of a stretch, but I'd say, yeah, anywhere outside the U.S. probably has a much better grasp of the real situation than anybody in the U.S. Yeah, the U.S. is viewed by the rest of the world as being very adolescent and very unaware and very misinformed. And from my perspective, that's very accurate.
We'll be right back. The Ellis Martin Report is sponsored by Xterra Incorporated, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol XAG.V. Xterra is a Toronto-based resource company, and their primary project is the Bilbao silver-zinc-lead-copper deposit situated in the Panfillo-Natera district of Zacatecas, Mexico, approximately 50 kilometers south of the state capital of Zacatecas, where Xterra is currently completing a bankable feasibility study. Between the company's Bilbao, Laguna, and Panfillo projects, Xterra has a resource of 100 million silver equivalent ounces, including 33 million ounces silver in 43101 compliant resource. Zacatecas is a well-known mining district with infrastructure in place. Mining opportunities are both open pit and underground. There are no significant environmental issues, and there is an available local workforce there, as well as goods and services for development of the projects. You can find a full investor prospectus on Xterra's website. Just log on to xterra.ca or find their logo and click through on the homepage of our website, ellismartinreport.com. And we're back. All right, David. What, if anything, does any of this have to do with the price of gold or silver?
Well, it has a great deal to do with it in the longer view, because as things unwind further and this war potentially escalates, or even if it doesn't, there's more and more uncertainty in the world. There's going to be more and more of a fight between the East and the West for political power, for the resources, for who's going to dominate the world, really. And based on that power and the economies behind it and the monetary system to be determined in the future, you're going to want to be in a safe place, a safe harbor. And that's always been the precious metals, and I believe that will prevail. It's just that things are so untenable at times that you can get these big whack downs in the metals prices based on fictitious paper trading, really. Yet, nonetheless, it does take the price down. So anybody that's on margin could get hurt very badly. People that understand what's really going on and just take an adult, mature approach and dollar cost average or buy a certain amount every month or every 6 months or whatever and have a discipline to it, I think will come out just fine. And for those that don't have any, it's better to have some than none regardless of the price. So I think you just have to have the right attitude. But as far as trying to navigate this market on a timing basis, it's extremely difficult, but it can be done, but not every time, and that's the point I want to make.
Tell us about the Morgan Report.
All right, just go to silver-investor.com or themorganreport.com. Both URLs land at the same website. We have a lot of free stuff. There's a free market letter every week that you can get. There's also a YouTube channel, Silver Guru, a Twitter feed at SilverGuru22, and you can also get on the memberships part of the website, which has 3 different levels. It has kind of a beginner, which is the newsletter only in an e-format, and then there's an update by videos done by yours truly or an invited guest, and also all of the interviews I do at mining shows or conferences or that type of thing. And lastly, there is an advanced service for high net worth individuals or fund managers.
David, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for joining me today on the program. I've been chatting with David Morgan. His website is themorganreport.com. Listen to the segment again on the podcast page of our website, ellismartinreport.com. The preceding segment has been sponsored by Xterra Incorporated, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol XAG.V. Xterra plans to become a mid-tier producer of silver and base metals through the development of its Bilbao deposit located in the central Mexican mineral belt in the state of Zacatecas, as well as through additional exploration and acquisition opportunities. Find Xterra on the web at xterra.ca.